Pat, is Vanessa having you do virtual teaching yet or no?
Yeah, so my kids, I don't know about everyone else, but my kids, one of them is virtual learning right now through Google Classroom, and that's been going fine. My 3-year-old Declan, is just running around like a maniac. So that's also been fine. My wife is a teacher, as some people know, but she has not had to start yet. Her district is mainly just dropping packets virtually to kids and having them completed by the end of the day. But she's on the special ed side, so her and her main teacher just kind of, are working that out. It's interesting for teachers right now, actually, because they're really trying to figure it out. And God bless them, it's not easy. I know the city they're being trained right now to do virtual teaching, so
they did that for a week. So they had a week of, from what I understand, teachers had to go through a week of training to get used to the virtual classroom concept, and today is the day.
Oh, today is the day?
Yeah, so like Baruch is freaking out a little bit. Baruch's our head of global expansion and was our head of product for a while. He actually lives in the same building as me, but he's got his 3 kids home. So he has his I believe she's 10, 13-year-old, and then like his college student kid came home too, and he has to do virtual learning as well. Mm-hmm. So basically you've got a 3-bedroom, 1 bathroom with 2 parents working remotely and 3 kids online supposedly learning. So I don't know how you figure that out logistically, but he's doing his best to figure that one out right now.
Yeah, it's really interesting just to see what the kids are going through, because none of us ever had to live through something like this. Most of us. So when I see my son Jameson, sitting there answering questions and doing homework all virtually, it's really interesting to see, if that will persist over time. You know what I mean?
How do you think he's adjusting to that? Actually, I guess we're kicking off, but like let's get into topics around COVID. So,
we're just. Yeah, as usual, we're just
we jump right in. So appreciate it. We just talked about Baruch's family, so Baruch, you can jump in later and explain how the hell you're pulling off the hat trick of 3 bedrooms, 5 people, all virtually working at the same time. We look forward to kind of getting your take on how the heck you manage that sort of puzzle Tetris game where no one disappears when you fill the lines up. So. Would love to hear kind of your experience at some point. Our hope with this, guys, is the following. So let me just set the stage for what we're doing here today. Ideally, what we'll be talking about, and we're going to have this show daily from 12 to 1 on a consistent basis. If you hear a door, it's my Fresh Direct. Sorry, we still have priorities in life. And I think my Fresh Direct delivery is somewhere up there with Search from Home. So my apologies. We'll be going through learnings we're finding about COVID-19, how we're all coping with it, obviously as professionals, personally as well. So stories of triumph and championship in that regard. Also looking to hear business problems, right? What are we running into? What are we hearing our clients are having issues with? What are our companies having issues with? I've started to stratify in my mind like where companies fall in terms of severity or risk assessment in terms of their needs. And we've seen businesses react very differently depending on who they are. So really looking forward to getting some thoughts from everyone as to what you're going through, how that's working, and so forth. And then we're going to have some special guests on. I already have Lily Ray from Path Interactive is lined up for Wednesday. I just got a text from my friend Dwayne Forrester saying, when are you letting me on your show? So Thursday, we should have Dwayne Forrester on. I'm going to be bothering Rand and some other people to join us as well. Give us their takes on what they're hearing from the industry, what their companies are hearing, how people are responding. So really, this is meant to be twofold. It's meant to be educational in whatever way we can provide data. It's meant to be collaborative, as in there are a lot of very smart people I can see on this list here, ready to help. So we want to hear problems, business issues, personal issues, what we can do to help people out. And then and collaborate together. Pat and I do not have all the answers by any means. So we are just the enablers. So we're here to enable you. And then what we'll do is we'll move over to obviously any questions you guys have, data sets we can share with one another. So this is going to be recorded. There is a chat going on right now. I can't like look at the chat, look at everyone's faces and everything at the same time, but we will have the ability to throw in, if you guys know of files or articles or anything you want to actually drop in the chat to share with others, by all means do. We'll make those available as well to as many folks as possible. So from 12 to 1, hope you guys will join us every day, with exception of the weekends. Pat and I will be online, happy to help. And if this works, we'll expand it. We'll figure out if we need more time or what we can do or how we can be more helpful. So hopefully that sets the stage. At this point, I think we're 8 minutes in. We have almost everybody on. If everyone can make sure to mute out. I see a lot of folks not muted, but I see them on their videos are turned off, which is fine too. Yeah, we did have a situation with an all hands the other day where someone didn't mute. We definitely heard a toilet flush. So, yep, funny as that is, it happens. So probably shouldn't, but it did. So yeah, let's get started. Let's start with the situation we're in, COVID-19. It is pretty freaking strange out there.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And like, even with the preliminary research that we've done, so the interesting thing, so as of last week, of course, trying to do research around keywords for this was a little tough, just because a lot of them didn't have any search volume. So 93%, so we created an account, and by we, I mean Stephan, created a really great account that allows us to track all the COVID and coronavirus, keywords, just to look for trends and things of that nature. What we're seeing, of course, we're going to update this weekly, but right now 93% of searches are new out of the about 24,000 keywords that we were able to find, which is really interesting. Of course, a lot of those had 0 MSV. That's because people had never searched them before. But even like it's going to be interesting to look in the early days and then again kind of in the future to see what we found, because right now most keywords that are being searched include the word virus, and then also news. Those take up the bulk of it. About 9,300 on virus related keywords, 9,100 on news related. Then about 2,000 of the keywords relate to business. Then last week, 1,000 was prevention. I am sure that will switch, with everything that's happened. Then the economy and a few others. But 93% of searches are new. So that shows you, when you even look at Google Trends, you can see, you can see this massive hockey stick effect with just the interest in coronavirus over time, which makes sense. But I also found it interesting that a lot of people aren't searching COVID-19 or COVID. They're actually searching coronavirus. They're not using that iteration of it, which is interesting. Why do you think that is, Stephan?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. It definitely has been in the media. We're talking about it as coronavirus. I think coronavirus, COVID-19 as a term only became popular, at least in my own vernacular, more recently. I want to say within the last, when it hit the US. But when it was a China problem or another country's problem, as it's been positioned, unfortunately, which is not the case anymore, because this is 100% pandemic and it's 100% world actioning. And what I actually think is very interesting here too, that we should probably put as an aside and think about later, is it would be very interesting to hear from some of the marketers in those countries, the digital marketers in those countries, because they are ahead of us in terms of the wave of this, right? In terms of the e-commerce effect, in terms of all the other aspects. It'll be very interesting to see what their responses are and how their businesses had to respond in situations. But you would think COVID-19 is a shorter term, so easier to type out. People always defer to the easiest search term, but coronavirus just seems to be the term that's taken off. In doing this research, just to give you a sense, your traditional tools, SEMrush, other indexes were only showing about 6,800 some odd search volume related terms. After that, you were kind of left to your own devices. So last week, I kind of buried my head in every single keyword prediction / ideation tool I could think of to create and compile this index of 24,000 terms. Now, what I'll say is the following: if anyone wants to, on the call, wants to do some research in this data set, I'll be more than happy to connect you with the account itself and have you manipulate and look at the data if you care to come up with research and help us with researching this type of information. I think there's some really valuable stuff in there. It's just a lot of data to comb through. So happy to provide access to that account, let people play around and see if they can find even more insights in what we're looking at. Media is really the number one rankers when it comes to this sort of information, not surprisingly, right? What then takes over after that, so after media, you'll obviously have governmental websites. So I had to actually set a website I wanted to compete against. So or actually to track the terms against. So I put the CDC, obviously. So we'll be able to actually see how well the CDC is doing or performing from an SEO perspective, which I thought was interesting, because obviously they are supposed to be, at least for the American populace. And keep in mind, I only track these terms US. I did not start trying to get global with it. I did do geo-modified terms, though. So there are terms for every country I could come up with, even if they didn't have search volume. A lot of auto-completes, a lot of Google Trend type data that I threw in there. Still, again, to Pat's point, doesn't have search volume yet, but we're expecting to see that grow week over week. That is the problem, though, and I think that's a challenge, is what do you do in a world where the news or the subject matter, the virus, is moving faster than the search volume? It's really tough.
Yeah, I mean, and also like it varies so much industry to industry, right? Because I think that's what a lot of people are trying to figure out right now is who's going to be insulated from this, if anybody. I mean, I'm sure everyone is going to have some kind of impact from this. But even looking at the keyword set that we have, 80% of those searches are related to the travel industry, for example, which makes sense, of course. So I think a lot of those folks are trying to figure out what's the best course of action here, where we can, like what type of content can they create, or what, and this is speaking strictly from search perspective, what kind of content can they make to get people to, feel confident in their brands again. And I think that that's something that everyone is thinking about. Like, for example, I was just on the phone before with an accounting firm, and, they were like, what should I write? What should we write about, like, during this? We're probably home for the next 6 to 8 weeks, like if not longer, hopefully not longer, but if we are, we are. What should we be thinking about, especially, and I said that for them, like, they were like, should we talk about social distancing? Should we talk about things directly related to, to the virus? And I said, no, you probably shouldn't, because I don't think anyone's coming to your site for that type of content. But what they should be talking about is that they just moved tax day from April 15th to July 15th. And that's something that, like, every industry really has to kind of look into what they do and not work, because a lot now this is all anyone's talking about. Of course, it's all anyone's talking about. That makes sense. But I think a lot of people are getting caught up in, okay, I'm going to talk about, I'm going to talk about social distancing. I'm going to talk about distance learning. I'm going to talk about X, Y, and Z, right? When, some of that probably has nothing to do with their business, and that's not going to help them, and not going to help their brand during this time. So from that's a good, thing for people to realize too, is that you don't have to write about everything, but you can write about things that are pertinent to your business, which I know sounds kind of like common sense, but I think sometimes people get, this is a big thing to be caught up in, and certainly we're all in it. But I think that that's something that everyone has to kind of take a deep breath and take a step back and think about as well. Make sure whatever you're putting out right now is really relevant to your business and not just the situation that's going on like everywhere. Because if it doesn't have any relevancy to your business, people probably aren't going to come to a tax accounting firm to learn about social distancing. But they will come there to know what does tax day moving by 90 days mean for me, right? For businesses, it means a lot. That's a lot of time for individuals who owe money. That's a lot of more time that they have to plan expenses and plan what they're going to do about their taxes. So I think people have to think about that as well.
Yeah, what's interesting about that? So I was actually thinking about my own taxes, and as this was all going down.
Let's talk about your taxes, Stephan.
Yeah, let's talk about my taxes. I'm gonna release my taxes to everyone. Don't worry, you'll all have my tax returns before the end of the year. Well, the U.S. government definitely will. So as I was thinking about this, let's back up, right? For anyone who didn't know, my wife's pregnant, 22 weeks. It's awesome. It's a really crappy time to have that be the case. I'm hearing horrible stories of like, hey, if you're giving birth right now, the dad can't even be at the hospital. And I'm like, over my dead body, I guess we're having a home birth. No, it's not gonna happen. But why I'm saying that is because I'm gonna reduce the amount of time I go outside. In fact, I've been in my apartment, if you can't tell, by my stir craziness or extra stir craziness since March 5th. I told Seth, our CEO, listen, dude, I'm not quarantining, but I'm sequestering myself. Wife's pregnant. I don't want to get sick. I'm going to just stay home as much as possible. And then I thought, I have to go to my tax account. What do I do about that? Now, luckily, some businesses have gotten smarter, right? They're starting to evolve. So I'll give you examples of a few businesses and what I've seen them evolve in doing. And actually some turning it into a business opportunity as well, not in a salacious or kind of negative way. My accountant accepts my taxes via email. She can then take those taxes, do them, and then hold a phone call with me. Now, she probably hasn't thought about the fact that video conferencing would be better than a phone call. She's a smaller tax accountant, so she probably should think through that, right? She should evolve her business to letting all of her clientele know that she has this ability, right? So, because she does have a very large waiting room, and I remember I've gone to the same accountant for like 20 years, and there's always a ton of people sitting in that waiting room. And there's no way I'm doing that in a COVID-19 world. So what do you do about that, right? Well, you send your taxes in, and she should be talking about the security in receiving tax documents, which she probably doesn't have, by the way. But as a smaller business, she should be trying to set that up. She should be doing video conferencing to consult. She should be taking that information and making sure that those are the emails that are coming out. I don't need to know how, I mean, yeah, it's nice to know that they clean their office, but who hasn't received 7,000 emails in the last week and a half telling you how people clean things? I'm like glad that everyone cleaned things to the extent you clean them, but right now, how can you make my life easier? Because I'm not taking the flight Delta, so I don't need to know how you clean your planes right now. What I really need to know is how are you going to make life easier? Now, on the other hand, I've gotten emails, and I don't know if you guys have, from companies I hadn't even touched in like decades, right? And they're all reaching out to you, and like email is like the choice of marketer right now, even though I think it's having a lackluster effect, because I think it is just bouncing off people's inboxes at this point. Like people are like, I've got my own stuff going on, I can't deal with this. But an interesting one came through. It was from a Krav Maga group I used to go to like 10 years ago.
Fun fact about Stephan, he knows Krav Maga.
Oh, so anyway, so for a little while, very little while, I'm no badass by any means. So went to this Krav Maga, I just wanted to stick in that I went to Krav Maga. No, so this guy actually, not only did he take his gym, which is shut down, right, and turn it around and provide video classes, but now he's providing 7 days of those video classes free to potentially get new users who are at home who never thought about doing this to now be introduced to his business. So he flipped, pun intended, right, a situation which was negative in that regard, and actually turned it around into a positive in saying, I have something that I can provide as content. I just need to do it in a digital format because digital has now become the new norm.
Yeah, and I mean, it's funny you say that, or interesting you say that, because when you think about it, like I've been reading a lot of reports that people are saying that because of the amount of time that people are going to be home and the amount of different types of businesses that are going to be trying to do things digitally and through Zoom, just like this, I've heard a lot, like, kickboxing courses that, Vanessa used to take, my wife, are sending her video, or saying like, hey, listen, we're doing, 5 videos now, which is the same exact thing. I see a lot of businesses that are being creative that way, which is awesome. And I think from there, they're saying that a lot of this may change the way that people work in general, like the work culture, because
yes,
a lot of people are going to see now that you actually can work from home and be totally fine. Like people can exist at home, they can work from home, but a lot of people think that you have to be in an office to get anything done. And I think in 2020, I think everyone has a different opinion on that. I like going into our office. I like being around all the other conductors. I love the energy of an office. And I like having a start and an end date, which we'll talk about next. That's a whole other work from home thing, of wanting to know when to start and know when to stop. But that's something that I found super interesting, is that people are they're saying that people might after this be like, hey, can I still work from home? I'm actually more productive there. And I get time back. That's more time with your family. That's less time on a train, which is super important. But also just from a productivity standpoint, I tend to get a lot more, just like work done as when I'm home, just because I'm not walking around from conference room to conference room. You're just kind of logging in, you're typing away as you do things. I just happen to get a lot done. Not that I don't get anything done at the office, obviously, but there's just more distractions there. But a lot of people, could work completely remote and be fine. And I know people who work remote 100% and everything gets done completely fine. So I'll be interested to see like how many folks request to continue to work from home after this, simply because they don't want to commute anymore. Again, no commute means more money in your pocket, especially if you're more productive from home. That's something that a lot of companies are probably going to have to face after this is all over in a couple of months. And I'll be really interested in that, to see like, hey, can I work from home, a few times a week? Can I work from home completely? Can I start to work from home once a week? I actually like the time at home. So what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, listen, I think the whole concept of physicality of in certain points, right? If you're working in a warehouse, you got to be in a warehouse. You're in a factory, you have to be in a factory. You're at a lab, you have to be at a lab. There are certain things that have physical aspects to them, machinery and so forth. You have to physically be there. There are a whole bunch of, I think, businesses that are now realizing a few things. And I think we step back for 1 second. We talk about, and I haven't seen anyone really write about this yet. So if anyone has read this yet, please send it to me. I almost want to build the quadrants of risk. This is now like all of us have just become like more cognizant of business risk, right? So it's like a business that was online only and provided an online only solution, Zoom, is pretty much in the insulated category from all of this, right? Yeah. Their employees could be remote, their entire product is remote, they sell their product remote. Yeah, it doesn't mean they don't like to probably go into an office and pitch a big deal in front of a client, but technically their whole business can run that way, right? And then you have other businesses that are like, let's say a nail salon, or not even, probably like a nail salon or something that has to deliver to you a physical good physically in a location, right? And they are on the completely other spectrum. So what happens there? Does that world, does that individual find a way? How do you become digital if you're over here? Can you? And is that ever something you can do? A business here might be the ideal in this quadrant. And at this point, what happens is you can have remote workers work from anywhere. So all of a sudden, this is going to open up the idea of other markets, people living in other cities being able to work for companies that otherwise they couldn't, right? Yeah. I think this is going to open up a lot of things. I also think, and I'm starting to build an index on this one too, guys, on home offices and remote working. I'm going to do a lot of research into those keywords because I have a feeling that now in real estate, guess what? 2 bathrooms, 3 bedrooms, home office is going to now be listed not as a luxury or as an aside. I think it's going to become standard bearer. Yeah. And I mean, home office large enough for 2. That's another one too. How many people now are struggling trying to have 2 people working, right, in the same space at the same time and trying to go through this? So I've been looking up 2 people office desks, home office desks, all sorts of research around the different stuff that people are going to look up for this. And I think basically when I was talking about the businesses, I think certain businesses like a Home Depot, for example, that sits in the middle, right? They provide a physical good, but they're also online. It becomes a question of like, what does their supply chain look like? Because that's what all of a sudden I've been really worried about supply chain. I've been like, well, how much of your supply chain depends on a human being? Because if it depends on a human being, that human being gets sick, that's one less person loading a truck. That's one less person sending goods off, right? Amazon is hiring, I don't know how many workers right now. CVS just said today, 50,000 full-time, part-time, and temporary jobs they're actually putting out onto the market in order to serve the need. So clearly, we're seeing there will be places that will be hiring. There will be places that are going to need to change the dynamic of what they do. I wouldn't be surprised if warehouse automation becomes a really big thing too. I think people are going to want to automate warehouses as much as possible. I've been wondering if that's why Amazon, maybe anyone knows this. Does anyone know if that's why Amazon gives you a box that a certain size with a lot of packing in it for something that's really small? Because maybe that works better for their like calculations of how they, I almost want to learn logistics because of this, because it made me realize how like dependent we are on systems. Because this all works fine. E-commerce will work just fine, by the way, in the COVID world, as long as we can ship stuff. The minute we can't ship stuff, whoo, that's going to be a new economy.
No, absolutely. And even going back to the work from home, point, Michael Brews on the line gave a really great stat. So 5.2 million people were working from home prior to this event, and that was growing. So of course, obviously working from home is not something that's new, but under 1 million at co-working spaces. And it's going to be interesting to see how that number jumps up, right? I mean, and think, from there, like when it's about addressing, home productivity, he's saying will be crucial. As many will be more productive with less in-office distractions, too many distractions at home. So again, going back to that point of, working from home, while not new, I think the entire culture is going to shift. And then Stephan, to your point, how does that, culture that's growing start to impact industries you probably wouldn't think it would impact. You know what I mean? When people realize that they can go work somewhere and work out of the comfort of their home, and they don't want XYZ job.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we're very lucky in regards to this virus. I know this is going to sound very weird, but there's two reasons I think we're incredibly lucky. Okay, we could have had an Ebola pandemic. That would have been very different. Right? That would have been, you want to talk about social distancing, you wouldn't have a problem with people at John Jay Park down the street from me who are like all congregating and still going out as if nothing is happening here, because they actually would not be able to be around one another. It would literally be life or death in that situation. Here, we've had I don't want to downplay this, but let's call it, in comparison to something that could have been killing everyone it gets a hold of, this is a soft pandemic. It is showing us what the potential of a pandemic can do, how much impact the pandemic can have. We're lucky that it is not that the numbers aren't reversed, that we're not seeing 80% of people, hospitalized versus 20%, right? Mm-hmm. So that's a very lucky stat. Now, why do I say that? I say that because it makes us realize that's possible, right? All of a sudden, our world has shifted. The idea of having food at home in cans isn't so crazy anymore. Those doomsday prepper guys, I'm not saying everyone needs an underground bunker, okay? Let's not get too crazy. But the concept of possibly having, food stored up, the concept of having home sanitizer, hand sanitizer, not in bulk. You don't need like a tractor trailer of the crap, but like having this stuff already stored up is changing the dynamic. Also, the fact that children weren't really super, knock on wood, impacted by this is huge. Had children been impacted by this, you would have seen entire cities evacuate. You just would have. People would have evacuated every city possible, and our entire diaspora of the way that individuals live, I believe, would change. I think you would have a very different dynamic of who chooses to live in cities versus who chooses to live in the suburbs versus who chooses to live in rural areas with a lot of separation. So I think that we're seeing a shift. I think people are recognizing things will become luxuries, like a balcony in an apartment. I'm lucky to have one. I can still go out and get some fresh air, right? It's certain things are now going to become more important or less important. When it comes to, I think we should turn to the digital marketing aspect of this. When it comes to your business, where does your business fall right now in terms of its risk, right? Are you sitting in the Zoom area where you've got everything digital and you can deliver digitally? Are you sitting in the nail salon, or maybe you're providing flooring, right? Flooring. We have a large flooring manufacturer distributor, right? They're probably in a very tough spot in that regard because people aren't putting floors in right now. No one's doing construction right now. So what are you going to provide? What is the kind of content you're going to provide? What are the things you're going to do? How are you going to set it up for what happens post this? And I think that's a really important conversation to have, which is, what are the things you as a marketer need to be thinking about, given the budget, but need to be thinking about moving forward? What do you think, Pat? What are some ideas you have around okay, let's say 6 months out from this, what can we be doing today to plan for 6 months out?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it comes back down to is, number one, what happens to your budgets, right? Because that's what I've been talking to a lot of people about budgets, getting slashed, budgets, where do you invest? And a lot of that, of course, is going to more than likely come from, paid media, spend, a lot. That's probably going to take the biggest hit. And something else I was talking to someone about the other day is, do you spend it all? Like, because you actually don't want to go out there and make it look like you're trying to capitalize on the situation. I think that's something that a lot of brands are struggling with, is how do I go out and put something out there that is relevant to what's going on, that I want to show that I want to help my customers, but I don't want to look like I am trying to capitalize on a pandemic, right? And you have to be very careful with how you word that and how you approach that. And to me, I think paid budgets are going to be fraction of what they are right now for at least the next 2 to 3 months, as we see how this thing shakes out. Most people will probably continue to spend on their brand. Most display advertising will probably get slashed, pretty big time. SEO budgets. I think that, again, this is probably one of the most important times to have a content or SEO program in place, just because you want to plant those trees now. And I think what you can work on now is, and this is what I've been doing from home, it's like all that stuff that we've all been saying we have no time to get to. This is the time to get to those things, like all those bottom of the totem pole type stuff that you never really wanted to spend time on, but is important, you have to do. Now is the time to do that. Like, I was just running, I was going through a customer's PLP pages and just updating the formulas of their title tags and meta descriptions, like stuff that is just day-to-day work that I just haven't been able to get to for the last few years, because you're working on bigger, bolder projects, which are still moving, but they're, but you got to start building some of the foundational stuff and doing some of that day-to-day work. So that's, from an SEO standpoint, that's what I've seen a lot of requests coming through for, is yes, research around what's going on, what's going on, what should I write about, but also, here are these tasks that I've been putting off for 3, 4, 5 months or longer. And, should I be working on these now? Like going through, doing this technical audit and going through these really nitty-gritty issues, simply because I have more time. I have more time because I got my commute back, or something like that.
Yep. So I think you're 100% right, but I think we need to decide. One, you have to get with your head of marketing, right? You have to understand what is going on. Like, where does your business stand on that scale I was talking about in terms of its risk? So are you guys just trying to keep the lights on? If you're trying to keep the lights on, you're going to be bailing water. You're doing everything you can to get at whatever the most important action that you can possible, right? If you're not in a keep the lights on situation, it may very well be, you should be looking at the website traffic in general and seeing how it's changed accordingly, right? What I think is, no matter what we're talking about here, we are going to go into a recession, okay? Or no matter what, we've seen that the economy is incredibly fragile in regards to this. Now, it's a pretty big hit to say, let's shut off all, going out, and like, especially in New York, everything's shut down. Everyone's on pause, right? But when you think about the aspects of that and what that does to the economy, we have to think about what it is to be a company in a recession. Now, that means you may not have as many acquisition dollars to play with. It also means that you may need to now focus on the lifetime value of your current customer, right? Because there's only so much money to go around. So your current customer is going to matter to your business a lot more in terms of reselling. Why? Because I think in a time and place where people's dollars are crunched, they're less likely to spend them on net new things or things they don't know or trust versus companies they have learned to trust and care for them, right? So I think, one, this is an opportunity to definitely show you care. A company that I think is doing a phenomenal job of that is GM. Have you guys seen those ads for GM? GM is now allowing you for $0 down, right, to get a car. $0 down. I'm not sure if it's $0 down. It's zero interest for 84 months. What is that? 7 years? 7 years. It's unheard of, right?
Yeah, because, another company that's doing something very similar, and Nadej should call this out in the chat, is that ClassPass has auto-canceled payments for the next month and is offering video classes on demand in their app instead. I think that's a great way to show that they understand what's happening, and to folks, and it's a great retention play. But also it's a great way to show that you actually do give a crap about and understand that some people might be falling on some hard times right now.
But what's so interesting about that, right? In that case, right? Well, let me just finish the GM point. The GM point is the idea that they'll also push the idea that you can now buy a car remotely. Now, I don't know if I would ever buy a car without test driving it. It's a pretty big expense to do that. But if they have a really interesting return policy on that, in that case, which is something they should have thought about, and if they had added that to the conversation, hey, buy a car from us, much like CarMax has one of those things where I think they say 7 days, you don't like it, even though you're not supposed to be driving a car around anyway. So I don't know who's buying a car right now, but for anyone who's buying a car right now and is going to get that car with no interest for 7 years, which is a really long time, you know, I think that's a pretty amazing story. In the terms of ClassPass, what I think is interesting there is that's the evolution of a business. They can potentially turn that around, because it's, let's say it's, I'm assuming it's free. Is that what we're saying? It's
Yeah,
now
it looks like they
free only
auto
to
cancel.
members.
Yeah, they auto cancel payments for a month, and they're offering online video classes for free.
Okay, so I know Nike did something similar in terms of getting their content out there and providing that at no cost. What I think that is I think that's an introduction to a lot of people who didn't necessarily know your product and who are now going to consume it digitally. This means when this passes and they now get to turn around and say, okay, guys, we were there for you during that time. Here's what it costs moving forward if you want to continue. There's a very good chance you just opened up an entire marketplace of people who never knew or experienced your product and are now using it digitally at a time and place where they feel stress, the most stress potentially, the most anxiety. It is helping them remove that anxiety, right, through all the dopamine it creates and so forth. And you can now transfer that into a net new product to go to market with, and an already built-in audience of not just your current clientele that you transferred, because all those people will probably want to go back to actual classes, but there will be a whole bunch of net new people, maybe older people even, who needed to get exercise that are now getting exercise otherwise. I was thinking about you, Pat. Peloton, you own one, right? Are you now super stoked that you have Peloton?
Yeah, I am.
Are you using the digital class now or no?
Yeah.
So were you paying for that beforehand? The $54 a month?
Yeah.
Okay, and that's where you see them, they see you?
Yes.
And what do you think? Do you think now it has more value to you than it did before?
I think so, because because I'm at home, and when you get home, again, it comes down to the commuting time, right? Like if you I have 2.5 hours of my life back. I actually have time. I'm not getting home at 8:30, 9 o'clock because the LIR was delayed, in Jamaica for 45 minutes. I do want to we do have someone in the audience who wants to chime in. Jennifer, are you there?
Let's go.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you? What's up?
Good. This is my first time meeting, and I'm very impressed. I actually have a couple of things. I'm a therapist, and I am actually working now teletherapy, which is very, very new to the industry. And with my existing clients, it's been okay, but having a new client come in, you miss that social dynamic. So that's been the new, kind of a difficult transition right now for the new norm. I was a teacher for 10 years, so I really understand about right now the teachers and what they're going through. And I really am like in the beginning about how you were talking about the social problem model that's going on right now in terms of data, stats, and what research really needs to be done. And the sources that you're getting it from regarding CDC. But I wanted to share in regards to business, and I actually would like to invite my sister-in-law and my sister and brother-in-law tomorrow if they would join, because they had a small business for 4 years now, and it has been very, very successful. My sister-in-law was one of the top sellers for LuLaRoy for years. And so she stepped out of LuLaRoy, and she actually has her own boutique that she's been, she's got thousands of customers. And over the weekend, she goes live every day. She has, she has customers. Okay. Long story short, she got someone coming on and actually emailed her with a threat, because how dare you in what the situation is going on, you're still selling.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of gave her the idea of, well, do an online forum with your group of, you know, stress and how everybody has to adapt. But you know what? She's following government protocol because she's looking, you know, support small businesses.
Yep.
So in one aspect, I feel really bad because they are in a position where, you know, they've got lots of product. They run remotely out of their house for the past 4 years. They have 2 children and they're like all over the place. They have an office, they have a warehouse in their garage, they're moving product, clothes. I mean, everything in the boutique you could think of.
Mm-hmm.
And yet you have people that now are trying to destroy them because they're still trying to run and make money to survive, you know, for your basic needs. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
So I think, go ahead. You want to go ahead, Pat, or?
Yeah, mine's probably shorter than yours.
Just so you know, I'm muting.
Okay, Jennifer, thank you so much, and an amazing point. You know, that brings up a really amazing point to think about, is that we also should not be afraid to go out and do business and keep the economy moving. So I live in Long Island in New York, and all the all of the businesses around us, all the restaurants mainly, that we frequent around. I live in Wantagh, are all delivery only right now, or you can come and pick it up. And a lot of times, like I was talking to a friend of mine, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to go out and get, and go support the local businesses, because we have to keep those local businesses going. They're the backbone of the economy. And I got a pushback on, they're like, well, you really shouldn't be leaving your property. You really shouldn't be going near other people. You really shouldn't be doing this. And I completely understand that, but all of these restaurants have set up, are doing everything properly. They're doing everything safely, where there aren't hordes of people, inside the restaurant. They time it out really well. They're mainly doing delivery, but you can do takeout, but they give you times that you can go, so that there's never more than, I've been there for the last 3 or 4 nights, because again, just supporting, there's never more than 3 or 4 people there. They keep everyone's space. They're doing it properly. So Jennifer brings up a good point. People should not be afraid, or chastised rather, for going out there and trying to support their families and make money. It's just, it all comes back again to how you message it. You don't want to seem like you're capitalizing on a pandemic, but again, we still have to keep the economy going, because we can't just go into our shells and be like, see you in 3 months, like that would be catastrophic.
Yeah. And I would say the following, Jennifer. So I'm great to see you, by the way. I think, it could be flipped in a way where she should potentially show how her business runs. In fact, I think most businesses should start teaching you how their business runs, right? I think this is now the time where people want to understand how that all works. We employ these people, or we do this. In your case, it's, well, here's our warehouse. This is why we can still ship. As long as the mail works, we'll be here for you, right? It's funny, if anyone uses, there's an app called Touch of Modern, right? And it's actually kind of cool. It's all these modern gadgets and whatever. They've chosen to tell you right in the app at the top, it's literally in, I don't know if people will be able to see this. Probably not. I'll read it to you. It says, we remain open for business and shipping products daily. Okay, that's because they're all separate little groups of companies that all have these small companies that all ship. And what they've done is they've started to group them together. Like they'll say, stuck at home, barware, all the stuff that has to do with bars, or drinking at home. Maybe not the best thing, but somehow New York has considered those things to be vital. I was surprised when liquor stores showed up on the vital list of like must stay open. I was like, wow, okay.
That makes complete sense, though. What do you mean? That makes total sense.
Okay, maybe, but maybe not. Like, I don't know. I just don't know that the liquor store has to stay open. It's the only way we're going to get through this is unless everyone has wine and liquor.
Hey, man, you got to keep people calm. Some people, everyone keeps calm in different ways.
Okay, cool. I also did see hand sanitizer with CBD oil in it, which I thought was amazing.
Oh,
that I think is the best combination of 2 products, like stay calm and healthy.
Yeah.
But when you think about it, like the idea that you can, she should show she's a small business, okay? I'm not trying to capitalize. I'm not saying COVID sale. I'm not like, what I'm doing here is I'm continuing the livelihood. Show her 2 kids. And I'm not saying use them as a ploy to be like, oh, feel bad for me because I have 2 children and you need to buy for me so I can survive. But just explain the situation. And I think businesses need to explain the situation. How many people are you keeping up? Certain businesses, and we should talk about this, Pat, have chosen even to take their virtual business offline.
Yep.
TJ Maxx shut it all down. Now, I know other e-commerce stores that are not doing that and have people in warehouse that are still struggling. And you know what? If your people are in a warehouse right now working, go get a few shots of those people, right?
Yeah, Jennifer,
they're the ones who are keeping your business alive.
Yeah, Stephan, you just mentioned a great point. She is doing all of that, and now she's actually tying in how to handle and cope with anxiety with doing mindfulness, techniques, and people are responding well to that. I have a question though. Her business runs out of Facebook. Facebook has done a lot of things over the past couple of months with, shutting down, freezing accounts because of selling.
Yep.
As a marketer, how is there other avenues that you can take besides just using Facebook? That's the dilemma. It's like, how do I reach out to people? And it seems like Facebook's the only way that her business is surviving is Facebook. And with everything that they're doing, and they just do it at a whim, she just gets noticed on every, one day she gets noticed, oh, you can't do this, So do you know of any alternatives from your wisdom of, oh, he's smiling, I'm going to be quiet now. Mute.
No, Pat can do this one.
No, you can go, Stephan. It's fine.
Oh yeah. So obviously, search engine optimization is definitely the place where I would say, if your sister-in-law, I believe it is comfortable writing content, I would say right now is a great time for that. Depending on how much, this is something I was going to bring up also. Someone brought this up the other day in an article I was reading, which is, and I hate to say this because it's not to take advantage, but there are a lot of contractors out there right now, a lot of writers that are not working, and they are willing to go lower on their prices in terms of content creation to help businesses. Businesses should be looking at early stage content. So the kind of content that combines, I'm not sure everything that she sells, but if she sells all types of this or that type of, wares, categorizing them, building categories around them, writing content about why those things are wonderful. You can get a lot of great writers and access to a lot of great content right now that you might not otherwise have been able to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and not to just lean into SEO, of course, that is something that, is super important right now. An interesting thing that I've seen a lot of small businesses doing are grouping together and doing things together. So a couple of the restaurants here started doing the takeout, like one night, you can get drinks, for example, from one of the places and food from the other, since they're right next to the door, and then they'll switch the next night. Then they do food from this one and then drinks from the next one, and they give discounts on everything. So it helps promote, in the local area, which is probably some of the best areas that like smaller businesses can do, is to promote in their local area and try to create partnerships that will last well beyond this thing. The owners of these 2 restaurants are going to be doing this forever, I would assume, like after this, because it's worked so well and it's brought so much goodwill around the neighborhood. But to Stephan's point, getting out there and now's the time to write, right? Now's the time to go and do those things that you've been ignoring, as I said before, for a really long time. Make sure your website's optimized, make sure it works well. Go out there and just write about what's going on, your daily experience. I think I've seen a couple of companies do that. There's one place here who is not allowed to sell on Facebook right now. That happened, and so she started to create videos. It's a great business called Nicolette's for the Home. I think they actually might have raised the no sale thing for her, but she sells basically just like home goods, like weathered home goods, like barnyard type stuff. But what she started to do is she has her daughter at home and she creates videos. And what they do is they decorate different parts of her house with stuff from the store. And then they say, hey, listen, we're shipping free. And then, while you can't buy it online, they show things that you can do, and gives phone numbers, said please call me here, please email me here, and that gets the word out. Because like the Facebook page isn't shut down necessarily, but just the fact that you can't sell through it, but you can still use the page. So video is a really, really good way for any business actually to really, because people are at home and they're flipping through, and it's really powerful, because basically she took what she did in the store and she just is now doing it to her house because she has everything in her garage. And it's really smart. And plus she gets to show off her beautiful daughter, who's 8 years old and helps her do it, which is adorable. So that's also, just, it builds a lot of goodwill. It's great for the brand. But any company can do that. Any size, can do that. And I think that's something, that's what I would spend time on now, is just making the website as good as possible, but getting video content out there.
Your point on video is like dead on, right? I mean, like, more people are now willing to join a Zoom meeting to have a conversation. Versus, like, we could have made this a webinar, guys, which would have just been like Pat and I, and that's it. We couldn't see people. Like, I enjoy being able to see everybody here. Like I said, if anyone wants to share their camera, we'd love seeing you guys. I think it makes that personal connection a little bit closer. And I think even though video is a one-way kind of thing, you could see people's expression. It's definitely a great medium. And it's one of those things where I think video content is definitely going to be on the uptick after this. I think people are going to recognize that's a need. So I'd say like YouTube channels are a big thing too. Focusing on YouTube channels right now, optimizing YouTube channels. I think people are going to consume a lot more than they were previously. I also have to ask this crazy question. Oh, by the way, to the content writers, I'm not trying to undersell you. I'm trying to actually give you more business, because more small businesses will now consider writing content versus those who weren't considering it and just thinking it was something that big enterprise businesses do. But because I saw that comment in there. So no, I'm not trying to undersell you, but I am trying to make sure that nobody goes hungry in this market, especially when writers can be put aside when their content is incredibly valuable, and frankly, I think the lifeblood of what websites are. Another thing I think, while we still have the time, that's worth noting is I don't understand television ads. Is anyone else like me going crazy? I literally scream at the TV. My wife's like, "What's the matter with you?" I scream at TV ads because I'm like, who's buying this product right now? Why are you spending this money? Like, I want to know why, unless you were forced into it. And I don't know, I haven't bought media in this way, so I don't know if once it's bought, it's gone and that's it, or you can't delay the spend or not run the ad. But like, if your ad isn't timely right now, I don't know who's buying a Mercedes when you're not giving me a special deal or anything for it. I don't understand where that disposable income is. Even the incredibly rich people have just lost 20% of their 401ks and everything else, right? So last I checked, it's kind of out of touch to be running those ads. In fact, Seth, our CEO, was going to the office until recently, and he was in the elevator, and he's seeing the elevator ads.
Yeah, the
Someone
elevator
is paying
ads
for those ads. Like, if people want to tell me there's not enough money right now to double down on search, something that I know people are at home doing, I mean, it's a fact, right? We see that people are looking for answers more than ever right now. How could we not have the money or the time or the devotion to that when dollars are getting wasted on this side of the business? Now, I understand those have never been connected, right? People have not been thinking of offline and online marketing together. In fact, often they're different groups in a large organization and they're separated and so forth. But we need to bring these things together and allow people to realize that if I'm spending too much here, I can cut back here. And I'm sorry to say this to my friends who deal in TV and so forth. I want to bring it back over and, be able to take some of that dollars, that money, get myself another SEO, get myself more content writing, so on. So that's what I'm thinking right now should be happening.
Well, yeah, I mean, and a lot of this is going to expose a ton of waste, right? I mean, when you think from a spend standpoint, a lot of folks are just trying a lot of stuff out, that doesn't work. The elevator ads is a perfect example of that during a time like this. It's like that media was probably already spent, through the end of the month. That's, but at the end of the day, I'll guarantee you next month that spend will still be going. So I think it's one of those things where this might expose a lot of, like, people are going to be tightening belts regardless, but I think a lot of people are going to be, you know, are going to be like exposing some waste or, you know, cutting down. But again, not being someone who buys paid media or anything like that. I don't know if anyone on the
yeah. Does anyone buy television that's on the channel right now that can give us a sense of this? Because I feel bad just saying that off the cuff.
Yeah, me too.
Like,
I don't want to miss. I don't want to miss.
Yeah, the last thing I want to do is speak out of turn. But I just, does anyone deal with that? And why are these budgets not being transferred right now?
Yes, Michael. Yeah, you on?
Yeah, kind of 2 points. So one, I don't know how it will be today, but in downturn markets, mass media advertising, the brands that keep their budgets, you know, even increase their budgets, right? You know, kind of building demand through, you know, through brand advertising, building that awareness, which we all need to drive search. They're the ones that, you know, proven data have succeeded. I have no idea in today's market with digital being so strong how TV is going to be impacted, you know, is going to, you know, be impacted against search. But one of the things I did want to bring up was, you know, we all know Google, right, is, you know, their fight is more advertising, right? It's not about SEO for them. And with their losses that are going to come up, with, you know, digital budgets being put on hold and so forth, you can believe that when, you know, this market comes back, they're going to have some new things that I think will be brought to the table as they've pushed, you know, organic down in the SERP, especially, of course, in mobile and so forth. Who knows what's next? So SEO, you know, I think Conductor, SEO, content is just so much more important than ever. These next couple of months, we have the ability to maybe have great impact on our organic search, on those non-brand that we hadn't maybe focused on as strongly, get behind that with content, and then, you know, hope that we don't get killed as Google comes up with, you know, whatever's going to be next.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a fair point, Michael. I also think that, like, I was speaking to a client the other day, and I was asking, well, what's your tech team doing? Like, you know, is your tech team busy right now? I mean, are you guys worried about load balancing? Do you have tons of traffic going to the site? If the traffic is down and net new things are not coming out because product releases have been pushed off, in my mind, that means there should be a whole bunch of other tickets of some backed up stuff that you should be able to get on the top of the priority list for the tech team to get out and get changed on the website to help with search, right? Because to me, that's an opportunity. So, you know, and that's what I want to make sure we're clear here, is that when we say there's a negative market or things like that, we're not by any means saying that it is that we should be opportunistic in that we want to take advantage of people or marketing in this time of need. Mm-hmm. But there is a way to do both. There's a way to see the downturn as an opportunity, not only to bring SEO up, which frankly has been overlooked by so many businesses for so long. And now is the time, I think, for it to shine and to point out that, hey, everyone's at home searching, and everyone is, as soon as COVID becomes more of our daily lives and we're a little more used to it, I think we're all going to be looking at, you know, searching back for stuff we need. And when we're doing that, we're going to be looking for answers, and we're going to be looking to the companies we know. And if those companies aren't there to answer those questions, that's a really weak point that I don't think many companies can afford. So I'm looking forward to seeing how we're able to almost parlay this into, do you have more bandwidth? Can you finally have that conversation with me? And by the way, organizations just flattened out. You can get on a video conference call with a VP of whatever in your company because you have to talk to them, because it used to be you had to go through a whole process to get there. Now it's like a quick Zoom meeting or FaceTime call. Do you have a second? You get on a call and you say, hey, I was thinking about this, and you can have that conversation. The dynamics have all equaled out. There is no corner office. There's wherever office you can set up in your house. So I think the great equalizer has occurred now, and the ability to get your ideas heard and realized are much more likely in this environment than they ever have been before.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fair. And I think with that, we are right at 1 o'clock, Stephan. So day one is down. How do you feel, big guy?
I hope we added some value, guys. I don't know. You guys give us feedback. We really need it. We can structure this a hell of a lot more. We want to ask a lot more questions. Today was kind of like, Oh, I feel like I had so much pent up stuff about this. I just need to like blurt out. So I'm so sorry I kind of vomited ideas on everyone. We'll try to structure ourselves a little more going forward. What I do look forward to is obviously we have Lily Ray on Wednesday, hopefully having Dwayne Forrester on Thursday. If you know if people want to come on, if you want to come on, or if you have questions, start structuring your questions. We're here tomorrow, noon to 1 Eastern Standard. Tell your friends, tell other marketers, please bring them on. Would love to help everyone we can and bring some business problems and issues, and we'll try to tackle them as much as we can along the process. Hopefully this was helpful, guys.
Yeah, everyone, thank you so much for joining. Thank you, thank you. Remember, we are all in this together. This will end, and let's all stay positive and forward moving. But thank you to everyone who participated today, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks, guys.